Drop the beat.
I'm a never Trump guy. I'm a never Trump guy. I'm a never Trump guy. I never liked him. I'm a never Trump guy. 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 I'm a never Trump guy.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. We're waiting for Mr. Ali in order to get where he needs to go in order to do it. Also, I do think it's funny that I put in Twitch, is Hasan Piker a scumbag? I put that in the title, and it's saying this is not an acceptable title. I think that's pretty funny. Is HP scumbag? Question mark. I don't know. I don't know what the problem is, but whatever. K Soko says, I'm back. Well, hello to you. We might have a few minutes before he shows up, so we'll just chill with chat for a little bit. Mar 27th Lib Ya Aki says Kyle. So I guess that's cool. That's cool. That's good. Good to know. Good to know. But how are you guys doing? I'm obviously a little mentally drained from Picklegate, and I have a busy day, and it's hot as hell. It's hotter than hell in Florida right now, so my office is cooking. Good news: Hearing Protection Act passed the House yesterday. Well, is it going to get through the Senate? That's the question. Because listen, I'm all about silencers, but. Yeah, I should try the title Baby Settlers. Would that work? Baby Settlers. I don't get that many viewers. Oh, no. Did that work? That's horrifying. All right, anyways. Oh, go live? Oh, no, it accepted Baby Settlers, but it didn't accept Hasan Piker as a scumbag. Yo, that's funny. Is Ali a Hasan simp, says Short Stack Goblin? No, I don't think so. He might be a little bit. I don't think he's going to be defending Hasan Piker's personal honor. I think he's just going to defend the notion that people from the Arab world can get pissed off at Israel and say some edgy shit, and it doesn't mean that they're anti-Semitic or something. We'll find out, though. I'll check YouTube, see if there's anything cool that we want to check out. Maybe we're on our own channel, so maybe I'll just put something silly on real quick. Maybe I'll just put on. Ooh, is Mike from PA here? Oh God, I hate this guy so much. Yeah, let's watch Mike from PA be an idiot for a second. Let's do that. That could be fun.
More principled critique, if you could call it that, figure into
So Voided Parrot says, I got a new membership. Well, next time you see Grassroots Hegemon, give him a thanks, because he effectively gave away like 100 memberships the other day. It was bananas. Then Kyle says, good. Was reading Maxwell Stern's work, Parliamentary America, definitely a good plan moving forward for reforming the government after Cheeto Head Moron and maggots are gone? Well, that seems a little aspirational, doesn't it? Kay says, grab the kids off the bus and onto the after-school grind. Happy to listen to a debate about Hasan being a scumbag. Well, we'll see. Right now, we're going to enjoy Mike from PA and this dude, Noah Sampson. They're also, Hamas and Houthi apologists, so might as well warm up with them while we're waiting.
I guess pushing candidates left without getting them thrown in jail or whatever.
Right. I mean, like we exist in, there's legal and illegal spaces, right? You read Lenin, he talks about the value of like legal Marxists versus illegal Marxists, right? So when you talk about it, when you're in, like, say, for example, a mainstream platform, there's certain things you just cannot say, because if you do, your platform gets deleted. So does that mean that no principled Marxists should exist in these spaces? If you're not Fed posting, you're not a real Marxist, that would be an insane position. So I kind of continue. And it's like, I really like Bad Empanada. My personal take on the Bad Empanada versus Hasan division is, Yes, and we need to have wide ends of the funnel. I think I talked about it with the deprogram guys on their podcast like 6 months.
Bear in mind, just as a warm up to this drama, Bad Empanada is the guy who narrativized Ethan Klein, his family getting diarrhea, their dog and their kids getting diarrhea. He narrativized it that his kids were eating poop and that effectively CPS needed to be called in order to check in on the welfare of the children. And then that ended up happening. And so as a result, he's effectively harassing, a Jewish gentleman via the state. And then what else did he do? He also, even though he didn't do it, at least it hasn't been proven that he did it, he also claimed responsibility for sending human skulls to Ethan Klein's house. So, I would say that that's pretty scummy behavior.
Months ago, but you need to have the wide end of the funnel, the part of the movement that is oriented more toward normies and is going to bring more people in. And then you need creators that are going to be more exacting and more principled and maybe a little bit more advanced in the education they provide, all focusing you toward becoming a political actor, becoming part of the hardcore left, right? And it is our job to create that continuum. It is the job of the people at the start of the funnel not to punch left, which I absolutely never do. You will never see me punching left. I do not do it because I think it's wrong. But you also need the people that are a little bit further down the funnel to keep that funnel open, right? Instead of closing off into a subculture, right? And because it's comfortable. And so this is, there is no easy answer. In fact, it's not even really my favorite topic because it causes people to melt down. You know what I mean? Like, it's not exactly the best one for motivating people to get involved, but we need stupid, sexy Hasan, and we also need gadflies. We need people that are telling us you're not good enough. You fucked up with this answer, and that's how I feel about it, right? Like, but I'm not going to cut off my nose to spite my face because.
Kay says, look, I was a radical leftist and anarchist Antifa activist for 20 years, but I think all these guys suck and don't fully understand what they advocate for. Not just that, Kay, and I appreciate you sharing that, but how much time and energy, and you can treat this question rhetorically if you don't want to answer, but how much time and energy did you spend praying for the left-wing rapture, right? How long did you wait for Bernard Sanders or AOC to win the election and then rip off their mask and be like, ha ha, I am a socialist. You elected me into power. Now I'm going to institute decommodification of basic human needs and workers owning the means of production. And it just never happened, right? Like the true. Okay, debate with whom? His name is Ali. He can tell us what his name is in a second. Let me see. He might have messaged me already. Oh, he's calling me. That's good. So let me join the video call. Hey, what's up, buddy?
What up, bud? How you doing?
I'm good. I'm going to pop you out. I'm going to bring you over. We were watching Mike from PA Fed post a second ago, so that's fun. And
Nice.
then did you want my chat's already asking, do you want to go by Ali or do you want do you have a different handle that you want to go by?
My handle online is Sociologic with 2 L's, but you can just call me Ali. It's fine.
Okay, cool. Then actually I wouldn't mind getting into it just because I do kind of have a hard out in an hour just because I do have a meeting at 5 p.m. So I kind of need to reset my brain so it's not total mush by 5 p.m. But Ali, I set this up as kind of, is Hasan Piker a scumbag? However, we don't have to keep it limited to a personality. That's obviously the drama clickbait. It's more about, kind of like what's too far, I guess. But if you want to introduce yourself to the chat and also tell us the way that you view the subject from your perspective, I think that would be a good way to kick it off.
Yeah, so I go by Sociologic. I am a podcast joiner. I join panels, I join debates. I have some pretty strong rhetoric and opinions that gets shared. I am starting a channel soon. It is called Project Socio, where I'll be having conversations and looking into, groups, people's ideologies, their following, their orbit, whatever it may be, just to kind of further understand how people kind of get to where they get to, right? It's not even so Hasan focused. It is everything around. It's the ideology around the whole Islamist, terrorist supporter, the Israel-Palestine conflict. All of these things are kind of essentially what the conversation is. And for me, I see Hasan, I see the rest of the people that we're trying to compare each other to, and outside of the support of terror, I don't really understand what the hatred is. It makes sense that people follow him, and I think the constant beef and battle between the two groups of the left is only strengthening him.
Well, yeah, but I'm okay with that. I'm okay with as a never Trump Republican, I am perfectly fine fighting losing battles that I think are principled. So we can talk about efficacy in a moment, but my frustration with the quote unquote terror supporting or whatever is, in my opinion, it is basically Fed posting. So it's saying things that would get, like, if people followed you through your logical conclusion and you committed the acts that these people were implying or inferring, you would be going to jail or prison. And then not just that, these people don't have the stones to do it themselves because they're too busy making money off of it, off of Twitch and YouTube politics. And then what else would I say? It does have real world impact. So as an example, now, I can't assign what happened in the past 24 hours to, what's being shit posted on the internet. However, 2 Israeli diplomats were just murdered in Washington, D.C. in the past 24 hours. Now, I think that probably has more to do with what's going on in Israel and Palestine. But I also don't think that it helps to have online pundits saying, like, yeah, okay, murder and terrorism is good sometimes.
Yeah, no, that shit's that is kind of what annoys me, right? So I'm not particularly, I'm going to say this, I'm not a fan of anyone. I'm a 33-year-old guy. I take people's videos, I watch them, I form my own opinions. I think that's what people should do. I don't think you should be a fan of somebody outside, like above the age of 16, all right? Watch people, form your own opinions, you are your own person. But the truth of the matter is you have a huge group of men who don't have role models. And so the people that they watch and the people that the information that they digest, they look up to them. So when you say that, like, you said that these groups of people are like Fed posting. So what would be like, is there an example of them saying to go out and murder in the street?
Yeah. So just as an example, Noah Samson, he actually removed this from his video, but he did the video. What is it? The YouTubers who supported a genocide or something like that. And effectively, it's 45 minutes of him showing what's going on in Gaza with people getting blown up, killed by the IDF, et cetera, et cetera. And I think he cuts out most of the graphic stuff, but you still see dead kids, basically. And then what he does is he goes in logically to, well, Hasan got in trouble or lefties got in trouble for saying that they didn't care about civilian deaths within the conflict. But if you actually look at polling within Israel, 97% of Israelis support the October 7th operations. And also there's 80% support in general for like the annexation of Gaza or something. So if you look at those stats and you follow it to its logical conclusion, which is effectively like, there's no such thing as a civilian. That's the logical inference based off of that statement, because you have the civilian population who is supporting what he is characterizing as a genocide. Well, therefore, at that point, you can do whatever the hell you want with them because they support a genocide. So it's trying to evaporate the civilian armed military member distinction. And I don't think that's something that should be evaporated. And then, let's put that on one side. And then I'm going to use Noah Samson continuing as an example. He did this thing where he said, this was cut out of the video, where he said, well, the people who are doing this, they have names and addresses and they're in the Western world and they're defense contractors and protesting isn't working. So clearly we need to escalate. And then as soon as that clip got spread around where it's like Noah Samson is calling for terrorist attacks on US soil, that clip got deleted almost instantaneously. So dude, how am I not supposed to infer that he's calling for terrorism?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that is
kind of spicy, huh?
Too far. That'd be steps too far. I'm good up to protests and light riots. I'm there, right? I'm there up to. See, I think the issue is, man. So yesterday I watched You and Destiny. I watched Bad Empanada and Hasan Piker.
So you're just suffering from brain rot right now. You were just hurting.
Apostate Prophet and Not So Erudite.
You're hurting.
Nothing made me. I agree with Thanos. All right, half of you, I disavow all of you. Okay, I disavow all of you. All right. My issues in each conversation, my issues with the Hasan conversation, honestly, is that I do think I don't like the socialist commie cringe thing. I never understood the commie thing. I never understood it. I am a capitalist. I am an American. I do like my Western values in society and so on and so forth. I am Lebanese American, so I am fuck Israel, right? Like we can just get at that right. But I don't like the pussyfooting around shit. I do think if you want to be about what you want to be about, say what you want to say it with your whole chest, and don't try to walk it down. All right, I'm cool with that. I watched you and Destiny. We'll get to that third. And I watched Erudite and Apostate Prophet. Nothing made me want to support the Islamization of America until that fucking conversation, bro. Oh, my God.
Can you? So people have asked me to watch Apostate Prophet versus Andrew Wilson, and I actually am curious because I don't know anything about Apostate Prophet. So if you could elucidate their perspectives, I'll keep it in the back of my mind that we probably want to get into me versus Destiny. But I want to know more. So if you could tell me more, I would appreciate it.
Apostate Prophet is an ex-Muslim now converted to Orthodox Christian. Ex-Muslim, actually anyone of any religion have to be the most annoying human beings I've ever.
Yeah, they have to quintuple down. It's like when somebody becomes an atheist and they make it their whole personality. And so they have to, like, every conversation you enter is like, did you know that God's not real? Did you know that God's not real? And did you know that, religion is BS? And did you know that in 300 AD, they codified the Bible? So the Bible isn't even the Bible. And all the holidays are after pagan rituals.
Bro. It's a whole thing.
Right.
Their lives are consumed. Their lives are consumed.
You're saying that energy, but anti-Muslim.
Yeah, the guy had some abusive parents, grew up in an abusive community, and therefore took that out. Couldn't defend himself, I guess, had to run away, and now is taking it out on the entire Muslim world, right? So I'm listening to this conversation, and I swear to God, if you replace Islam and Muslim with Judaism and Jew, that was literally just Nazi Germany rhetoric, right? We are in a state of world right now where anti-Semitism sure exists, but we are really, really ramping up the Islamophobia to where we are getting to a point where it's like, hey, ban Muslims. Hey, maybe we should consider kicking these people out. We're having conversations about how they don't assimilate. They're building cities. They're doing this whole thing. They're coming and they're fucking with our societies. That really is those conversations the conversations they were having. We are getting to a point where it's like, hey, are we gonna kick Muslims out of Western society?
Yeah,
they don't meld. They don't blend.
It's not going to. So in my opinion, the good news is I think as much as the right wing LARPs, as much as Trump sucks, I think that he shat on the economy so hard in the past 90 days that if there's economic downstream effects to the point that the economy has not recovered within a year and a half, I think he's going to take a massive hit in the midterms. Then he's going to be a lame duck president for 2 years, and then he's going to be gone. And I don't think there's as many charismatic MAGA leaders who will be able to replace Trump. So I think MAGA, I think it'll be a power broker. I think it'll be relevant in the right wing, but I don't think it'll be this like psycho pseudo-fascist bullshit that it is right now.
It's coming from the left wing. This was Erudite who was having the conversation and kind of nodding along. It's the people on the left who went and did their like little Israeli war tour, and they're like, oh, these fucking Muslims. I don't know what the solution is.
Well, and I think that's I was going to say that too. So if Apostate Prophet is an ex-Muslim who's hostile towards Muslims, because he grew up in a jacked up conservative subculture. And then if Erudite just came off of her Israel tour, so she's probably sympathetic to Israel more than, because that's the last person she talked to is Israel, right? And kind of what happens when you're dealing with like a toxic, abusive situation, that's an understatement. But typically you see the perspective of the person that you last talked to. So she might be more sympathetic to the Israeli perspective, whereas if she talks to a Palestinian, she might be like, oh, okay, I understand that. So the thing is, the reason why I guard against, I have Islamophobia. Okay, I'm an Islamophobe to some degree. However, I have good Muslim friends, and then I've also read the Quran, and especially in the beginning of the Quran, there's like the 4 or 5 tenets of faith or whatever. It's like believe in God in the last day, do good works. There's no God but God, and Muhammad is his messenger, peace be upon him. And so it's basically like 3 or 4 tenets.
Fasting and then pilgrimage.
Right. And so it's this very low bar of behavior if you're talking about claiming Islam. And what's cool about Islam too is that it's monotheist and universalist. So the thing that I don't like about Judaism is that it's monotheist, but it's closed. So converting to Judaism is actually really tough. And then the thing that I don't like about Christianity is it's Trinitarian. So they still claim to be monotheist, but they also think that Jesus Christ is the incarnation of God. And that's just like it's a belief that I can't quite jump. No, that being said, I'm probably so not literalist that even Muslims would be uncomfortable with me not believing in like the miracles of Muhammad, like him visiting the temple and, flying all over places and all that bullshit. Not bullshit saying derisively. I'm just saying all that stuff. But at the same time, like, I know that the bar for being a Muslim is actually down here. And then I also know that there's plenty of really cool, chill Muslims that I know. And so saying you guys are evil, you're going to kill everyone, you can't integrate, you're pieces of shit, you support all the wrong people. That's a self-fulfilling prophecy where if somebody feels alienated enough, then they're going to be like, well, yeah, fuck you, I'm the bad guy. And that happens.
Yeah. And so it's like I watch these conversations happen, and then that kind of further explains, like when you see what happened in the past 24 hours, the rhetoric has been like, oh, the keffiyeh is now the swastika, right? These people are all anti-Semites. If you said free Palestine, this was your fault, right? You have fucking Drew Pavlo, which fuck you for being friends with Drew Pavlo. I'm just fuck that guy's such a scrub. Anyways, you have him calling
you have to
for
understand,
the deportation.
Drew Pavlo is like I don't know if you've seen the meme of the Goblin mask, where in the new Spider-Man, like the Goblin mask is like talking to Willem Dafoe. Drew Pavlo is like my Islamophobic Goblin mask. Like he's all of the crazy shit that I want to say. But he says it pretty hardcore. And then every now and then, let's face it, he spams tweets. So he does like 6 tweets in an hour. The 6th tweet, I'm like, all right, that's too far.
It's not even too far, man. I can't take anyone seriously who has a video of their dad yelling at them to get a job online. It's just, I have my limitations to like certain people. But so like you have these groups of people who are talking about like like what constitutes being an Australian, what constitutes being an American. I've had a conversation. We have a national language now, right? What is being an American? If you don't speak English, are you an American? If you come and you set up little enclaves of like your Muslim cities or Hispanic cities or Chinatowns, that's not America, is it? So now we're getting to this point. We have.
I kind of do, but sorry, continue.
We have deportations kind of happening at for speech at a certain point because we're relating it to what we're tying it to terrorism, right? This person is a terror supporter, therefore we should deport them. All right, cool. That happens for naturalized citizens or for like green card holders right now. But like you said, Trump is eventually like the support is gonna drop, right? With the economy going low, with whatever it is. So how does you ramp up his support? Well, you got to fucking deport more people, right? These fucking first generation immigrants over here being in America, living off the teat of America, supporting foreign they're gonna come for me, right? That's going to be the issue. These fucking Muslims, they support this terror group.
Are you a citizen though?
Yeah,
you should be good.
They're coming for the. They
might be coming for your parents.
Trump said he wants to send the homegrowns out, right? He said we got to build some more jails. We got homegrowns we got to send to you.
But here's what's going to happen. And by the way, if I eat crow on this, then we're just at civil war. So if I'm wrong, we're at civil war time. And
where are you standing?
It's time to go. Well, no, I'll stand with the Republic. I'll tell you. So the thing about it is I'm not going to stand with the Christian nationalists. I'm not going to stand with the fascists, but I'm also not going to stand with the communists. And I'm also not going to stand with the Islamists. I'm going to stand with the liberals. So the liberals, the libertarians, the Republicans who actually believe in a republic, that's what I swore an oath to as a 18-year-old kid. That's what I swore an oath to as a 25-year-old man, was to the Republic of the United States. So that's my thing is if there's ethno-religious tribal militias who are running around gunning each other down. I'm not joining any of the ethno-religious militias in order to run around and kill other people from different ethno-religious backgrounds. I'm joining, hopefully, a splinter of the federal government who says, we let these psychos get out of control, and now we need to stomp everyone. That would be the team that I would join.
Yeah, I just see the rhetoric ramping up. Anti-Semitism's at an all-time high. Islamophobia is a new thing, and it's at a pretty fucking maximum high. I mean, it's at the point right now where racism, like, I feel like we solved racism by having Islamophobia and anti-Semitism pop up. But have you heard anything about racism?
I haven't heard anything about black people in at least
Anthony?
a couple of weeks. You know, I see the racist memes where they post like where there's some teenagers like knocking out white people, but the truth is that I don't see that as much as I see anti-Jew and anti-Muslim stuff. Now here's
and then with it being terroristic, with people wanting Muslim bans, with people wanting these types of situations, I do feel like I don't think we're actually going to get like a mass like migration of Arabs, but like I think we're going to get to a point where the people who do not want the Muslims around, the racists, the xenophobes, the Islamophobes, the anti-Semites, there's likely to be a big fucking fight out here, because it is getting to the point where people are getting shot in the street, right? Luigi Mangione, now you have this fucking guy who wasn't even Muslim Arab, he was Hispanic.
But but the easiest way for me to do that though is to reduce the Fed posting. Okay, so as an example, the thing that sent people into a panic was, and I could give you my whole Islamophobic background, but effectively it's 9/11, Boston bombing, Pulse nightclub, and Bataclan attack. Those are all places that I've lived. So jihadists have
Florida.
attacked it, or except for New York, but of course I enlisted the military, so whatever. So the point is that, you know, every city that I've been in or substantively traveled to has suffered a jihadist terrorist attack. And even when you look at the Middle East and North Africa, jihadism is obviously a problem. Even if you put that at the feet of geopolitical issues, 99% of the deaths that happened in the war, or not 99, 80% of the deaths that happened in the war on terror were jihadist militias killing rival jihadist militias. So it's kind of crazy how much jihadism is a problem. It's literally hundreds of thousands of dead in the past couple of decades. Now, that being said, though, the way that I would solve this is to reduce the Fed posting, because what you were talking about with like, oh, there's a Muslim city and they're planning on taking over or whatever. It was 3 or 4 young Muslim guys. They were probably rich. They set up an HOA, or they're trying to set up an HOA where they're saying that 10% of your HOA fee or 50% of your HOA fee is going to go to the local mosque. And so what's going to happen is a bunch of Christians and a bunch of, you know, whites and blacks or whatever, they're not going to want to spend half of their HOA fee on the local mosque. So it's going to be 90%, 95% Muslim. And then they were joking about naming the streets after famous generals of the caliphates, right? And so they were being assholes about it. They were using their God-given free speech, but people are going to get upset about that shit. And what I would say is, what would resolve that? Instead of being dicks and saying that you only want to live around Muslims, Christians would say the same thing. But instead of being dicks and saying, oh, we're going to name it after Muslim conquerors, it's like, dude, go have a barbecue, right? Like invite the church or the synagogue over for, what's the, isn't there a celebration at the end of Ramadan where you have a huge meal?
Yeah, Eid.
Yeah. So invite like the local Abrahamic. I know you don't want to invite the Hindus or the atheists over. You could, though, if you wanted to be nice, but at least invite the Jews and the Christians over for Eid, right? Because what's going to happen is, even if you guys viciously disagree about geopolitics, even if you viciously disagree about, you know, like religion and religious supremacy, at the very minimum, you can realize like, okay, in 6 months, if things break bad, we don't need to be running around in militias murdering each other.
Well, my thing is, like, I get that they were kind of being dicks, but that's kind of fun, the part of like being American. You get to have fun with the things with the way you want to name things. Right? We have statues of Confederate soldiers. We have flags.
But that's what I was saying. But Confederates don't get to have fun anymore. They don't get to have fun anymore. In South Carolina, which is a Confederate state, they took down the Confederate flag. And then also where I live, there's a neighborhood called Shenandoah, which is obviously named after the Shenandoah Valley, which is a famous series of battles in the Civil War. Everybody kind of cringes when they drive around it, because they're like, oh, you're glorifying the Confederacy, which was a rebellion that wanted to enslave people.
I agree that it was a dick move, but to be fair, we're talking about Epic City, right?
I think so. If they were joking
Texas.
about naming the streets after Islamic generals, then yeah.
Yeah. Now my thing is like in reading all the articles and reading all the tweets that came about it, I never really came across the complaint was that they're building a Muslim enclave and it's going to be a breeding ground for terrorism. Now the joke, them being dicks and naming the streets after whatever, I can agree that that maybe that was a bad joke, but that's not the conversation I'm hearing around. The conversation
Sure,
is
people
that
are
these
scared of
getting
Muslims.
together, they're forming Muslim cities, or you're seeing like God-Sod showing like overviews of like a California map. And it's like, look at all these mosques that are popping up. This is the Islamization of America. It's like, well, I mean, if Muslims are coming and they're buying the churches and they're building infrastructure and they're developing land, like, that's like the most American thing you can do.
It is, but at the same time, you have to understand that part of the hostility comes from. I'm a deist. Okay, I believe in God. I don't take religion literally. And even when it comes to God, I don't know if I believe in an afterlife or if I believe in anything specific. It's more like there's a creative force that set the universe in motion. There's rules that you can observe. And if you follow those rules, you'll do well. And if you ignore those rules, you'll do poorly. And we call these things sin and, consequences and parables and morality. But realistically, we're observing something that's real. Morality and
Jewish?
Sin is real. What's
You
that?
sure you're not Jewish? Are you sure you're not Jewish?
Not by birth. So no,
Yeah,
my mother isn't Jewish. She's Irish. Well, she's not even Irish Catholic. She's an Irish Protestant, and my dad is Irish Catholic. But anyways, the point is that I was raised Christian, and so the point is though with that is that there's a hostility, particularly when it comes to Christian nationalists and Christian theocrats and Christian conservatives, where we all have, or at least Christians and Islam both have that prophetic narrative that the world won't really know peace until people are converted, and then therefore will be going to paradise because they truly believe in the one true God. And in Christianity, you have to believe in Christ in order to get to God because there's no paths to him but through the Son, right? And so what's going on is I think that there's a cognitive dissonance between an increasingly secular society where America is becoming more secular over time. Europe is already very secular. And then you have Christianity that's kind of like holding on. It's kind of white knuckling it. And then you have Islam coming in. And Islam, while the birth rates are going down, they're still more competitive and more viable for a conversion conquering of the planet than Christianity is. And so it's kind of a hostility. Sure, you could call it Islamophobia, but it's also hostility rooted in competition for the souls of mankind.
Oh, I see that, and we've had this conversation before. So there was a talk in England, right? Like you have the problem in the UK is bad, right? You have a bunch of refugees coming in. They are in enclaves, right? They are in like consolidated little towns. You do have people converting. You do have like the essence of Europe, right, kind of fading away. But I think that's due to the secularism, right? So like you have Christians like white knuckling, and then you have the atheists kind of like running amok. They have the seculars. But the atheists are now losing to the Muslims because the Muslims have community. We're not individualists, right? We do think in groups. We do think in family. We do think in these types of things. We want people to join our cause. And then when you see Muslim communities, it's typically like, obviously, if you want to assume that people are Islamists, sure. But 9 times out of 10, it's just people drinking tea, eating food, barbecuing, whatever it may be. And then people are welcome to come join the community. We're a very inviting people.
It's also a universalist religion. So if you come in curious, and you're like, hey, what's this whole Islam thing? Somebody might call you, hey, get out of here, white boy. But another person is going to say, hey, come on over for dinner.
Exactly. So my argument has been for actually longer than a year or 2 years. Bring back cultural Christianity. If you want to win the war, if you want to keep your community, if you want to keep your state, if you want to keep your country, right? The worst way to do it is to be anti this group, anti that group. It never works. To be anti-war is kind of stupid. To be pro-peace will actually get you somewhere. So be pro-community, be pro-state, be pro-group, build your group instead of this individualistic thing where we cannot agree with it. Like, I'm sorry, atheism cannot compete against like whether it be Christianity or Islam. It just can't compete. But as atheists, you do not have a community like we do.
But you have to understand. So that is. I think we both articulated the fear and the anxiety. I think we both understand it well. I think the reason why, though, you have an atheist, agnostic, Christian, and Jewish alliance, even when they bicker amongst themselves. But the reason why you have those alliances where respective members of each one of those organizations will kind of come together for like debates or conversations about how Islam is bad is because of real shit that's going down. So obviously I brought up all the jihadist attacks that have been like peripheral to my life. But then also when it comes to shit like the grooming gangs, right? And so when it comes to the grooming gangs in the United Kingdom, it effectively should be, because this is what happened, is there were Pakistani men who looked down on orphaned, they're women in the foster care system. They're teenagers in the foster care system. And so they use different methods, but one of the methods was the lover boy method, where they pretend to be their boyfriend. They get her all wrapped up into the emotions of the relationship, and then they bring them into a gang, and then they start pimping them out. And I'm not saying it's all the time, but some of those people use ethno-religious bigotry as justification for why they're allowed to pimp out these girls. And they also use the conquest of Muhammad, peace be upon him, in the latter half of the Quran to say, well, in this metaphorical sense, I am a jihadist struggling for the supremacy of Islam, and these are kafir prostitutes that I took in holy war, therefore I can do with them as I please. Now, I view that as like evil and perversion, but effectively, like, if you wanted, not you specifically, but if Islam or Muslims didn't want to be associated with that kind of evil, then they would be like, fuck these people, hang them from the tallest tree. But oftentimes what happens is, especially from leftists, especially from some Muslims, not all Muslims, but we'll hear like, oh, well, you know, they had problems integrating with society, or when they were growing up, there were people who, you know, were Islamophobic to them.
Because you talk to dishonest people. That's why.
Well, right. But at the same time, like, dude, you want to, if the Islamic community came out and said, these are the biggest pieces of shit who have used God's name in vain in order to further their own disgusting agenda, and as a result, we want the state to put them to death, I think that Christians, atheists, and agnostics and Jews would be more comfortable.
Yeah, I think I agree. Right. So over the past course of 2 years, I've made it a point I don't support terror groups. I hate all of Saudi Arabia. I hate Saudis. The UAE can fucking, I don't care.
Yeah, but for the right reasons.
For the use of slaves. I'm not a big fan of. I hate theocracies. I hate the Islamic regime of Iran. Oh my God! Right, bring Persia back. Okay. But I think what happens is you have these, and I'm gonna like specifically in the UK. It's like you have these groups of people. You have Islamophobia happening. You have this group of people being attacked, and so the issue for me when I watched you talk about like the grooming gangs is that it doesn't seem to be a problem that grooming gangs exist. But then when they were Pakistani, everyone fucking lost their mind. Would not get over it, right? It was a virtue signal thing, right? It was kind of virtue signal. I watched Drew Pavlo talk to fucking Pisco, and you don't care about the rapes. You don't. It's like, brother, no one. We're talking about why are you so focusing so hard on these ones now? All of a sudden, when grooming gangs exist all over.
But let's.
The issue for you was I watched you. The issue for you was that there was an ethno-religious centering towards who they were attacking, right? That was a problem.
And not just that. I also think it points to a hostility in reference to immigration. So just as an example, I lived in Belgium for 3 years, and I went to French school because my parents forced me to, and there was a hostility to Americans because we think we're cooler than we are. You know, we speak our own language. We don't want to learn anybody else's culture, et cetera, et cetera. And so my parents made it a point for me to learn their language, to follow their cultural customs, et cetera, et cetera. And I viewed that as something appropriate that I should do as a guest in their country. And some of them were fucking dicks, and some of them made me pissed off. And I got into fistfights because I was the outsider. However,
you were there by choice, right?
I was there by choice. So
that's the
could be a difference, but
between.
We should talk about that in reference to Pakistan as well. But the truth is, or at least in my perspective, if I am a guest in someone else's country, it is beholden upon me the same way that if I was a visitor at your home, to follow the rules of your home. And if I flaunt and destroy the rules of your home, I am a bad guest. And that is particularly insulting. Now, you did say something that was interesting that was worth differentiation, which you said that they were, that I was there by choice. That's true. Can you tell me how you think that's important in reference to Pakistanis in England?
So, like in America, you have a bunch of immigrants that are coming in. You have a bunch of Muslims in America. You have Muslim cities that don't have the same issues that you have in the UK. You have all of Dearborn, right? This is it's a small community. Well, it's not a small community, but it's an enclave of Muslims, Arabs. You don't have these problems. You have California, you have Texas, you have Florida. There are Muslim
as far as I know, I have not heard about any kind of like ethno-religious, racist, rapist gangs in the United States of America.
Exactly.
But I would also say like Americans don't play that shit either, where if that did happen, there might be some like street justice bullshit.
No, I'm saying we like immigrants in America assimilate faster. And this was part of you had this conversation with Destiny yesterday. We said like we do better here at integrating people. I don't think that's the case. I think people want to come to America and they want to live their lives in America and they choose to leave most of the time they immigrate. Well, we do have some refugees and so on and so forth, but because America is like one, it's huge. Right, so we're not going to have like the same necessary issue as like England or the UK, but then two, like the American life is just like it's a bit better. It's something to aspire to when you're coming from one of these countries. But in the UK, the issue isn't immigrants. The issue is you have a ton of refugees in a small country of people who never wanted to leave their countries, but only left because of like whether it was there was a jihadis or the Western intervention in the Middle East, right? That then brings them over to England to be saved, right? So these are a saved people, but they're not a saved people. They get brought in and now they're being judged and ostracized because they're not assimilating fast enough. They're not learning the language. They're doing this thing in enclaves. They're living in their little communities. Well, it's like, once again, this isn't a defense of like grooming gangs. I'm just saying like if you have a like large refugee population, that initial population isn't going to assimilate, right? They're not going to integrate. But by the time they have their first set of kids or their second set of kids in the country, those kids are almost guaranteed to, they're growing up, they're going to the schools, they're living in the community, they're going to rebel against the culture of their parents. Not all of them, right? You're going to have strict religious kids that grow up in this cultural community or whatever it may be, but a majority of them are going to assimilate to a pretty rapid extent. And so like in the UK, the problem is that you have a large group of people who did not want to be there. They did not want to be in the UK. It's just they could not stay in their country. And they were told, hey, we're going to bring you here for a little bit, and then you're going to go back. But then they're going to blame Western intervention for the reason that they had to leave to begin with. Because in a lot of people's minds, it's like Al-Qaeda is America, ISIS, America, Israel, whatever it may be. It's this Western.
Yeah, but I get fucking. But this is where I get annoyed with people like Hasan and people like Frogan, where they're like, oh, the reason why people are so hostile, the reason why people do this, et cetera, is because of Western intervention. And I think that there's a certain amount of white guilt, especially over
the assimilation. Wait, I'm sorry, the assimilation, not the acts, like not the rapes, but I'm talking about the reason they don't assimilate and the reason they seem to group themselves together and not want to interact with the outside, the other English.
Yeah, it's not as voluntary.
Yeah.
That's I understand that. I understand that part of it. Although I think that the Pakistanis are a little bit more complicated, only because I think what happened, if I was to narrativize that real quick, is that England colonized India, and if I remember correctly, they didn't really make a differentiation between like Muslim India and Hindu India. They ruled both. Mm-hmm. And then what happened was when India declared independence, the Muslim areas became Bangladesh and Pakistan, and then the Hindu areas became India. And so there's this colonist relationship between England and Pakistan and India, and also Pakistanis, if I remember correctly, from like 60s and 70s, they were imported as cheap dock workers. And so they effectively did what Central Americans did in the United States of America, where they came to the United States as cheap labor. Pakistanis came to England for cheap labor. But then what happened was there was this hostility, number one, because of ethno-religious reasons, but number two, because of economic displacement, where a lot of working class English people hated and resented Pakistanis because
Pakistanis are the Mexicans of the UK.
Yeah.
Pakistanis
Yeah,
are
yeah.
the Mexicans of the UK.
So in that area, we could call it a level of like voluntary economic migration. However, I still take your point that I think that ethno-religious tribalism is more common in Europe, where they don't think of themselves as white. They think of themselves as French or Spanish or English. And so unless you're like a Pakistani dude born first or second generation, but you have a perfect English accent, you went to like a perfect English school, you like all of UK culture, and you exclusively date English girls, unless you're effectively like a Anglo token, then you might get treated like shit. I could understand that logically.
Yeah. And so it's like these things happen. And the issue with, I think, is we look at the group of people and we go, this group of people acts like this but we never take into consideration like what the fuck is actually going on in like the whole sphere. So like yesterday I watched your conversation with you and Destiny. And
Let's do that. Can I share one point and then we can get into the Destiny conversation? Please. Just because I know we're pressed for, we're not totally pressed for time. We can still have a good combo, but I want to be efficient as well. So all I want to point out though, and we don't have to dig deep into it, is as a quote unquote liberal, like I believe in liberal governments, maximum freedom for the human beings within a society, I can be chill with Jews, Muslims, Christians, etc. But I also understand that Jews who might have an ethno-religious bigotry or judgment from a different society, or Christians who believe that they're being outcompeted for the souls of the world, they may not be able to see the world that I do.
Oh, just get your numbers up. That's my only, like, I have no problem if you're a Christian and you see like you're losing the souls of the world, get your numbers up. I have no problem with it. Work, build your community, make your community stronger.
Get married, have kids, do a barbecue, do a fundraiser.
Do it. Yeah. But you're not doing it. So I'm sorry. The problem
is they're schizo posting on the internet. They're in my chat. Like there was a guy named Brad earlier today who was like, Hispanics this, and we're being replaced, and this is democide. And I
kept your numbers up.
Yeah, I kept bullying chat to bully him. I was like, go to church, be normal. Go to church, be normal. Go to church, be normal. And I kept saying that over and over to the guy because I hope that it bugs him on some level that he spends more time in my chat freaking out about the downfall of the white race than he does going to church, being normal, finding a nice white girl, and then having babies. I hope that bugs him on a subconscious level. But anyways, you were saying Destiny and my conversation, which I think is something we need to touch.
Yeah. I get Destiny's point. I understand Jewish Zionists. I understand like why they would be. Hold on one second, this fucking cat.
Go to church, be normal. Ali has to go take care of his cat. Grassroots Chudgerbon says he really likes this guest. Yeah, Ali's great.
Animals only exist to make noise. So I understand Jewish Zionists. I understand that they feel that Jewish people feel like they need a place of safety. All of this, all of it. I'm listening to your conversation, and Destiny kept hitting like a point, but just barely. He kept saying both of these people have an insane claim to this land. And and the Palestinians aren't willing to concede on peace, right? I don't think Israelis have a claim to that land, like zero, right?
Well, we disagree, but I'm happy to hear you.
Historic homeland in the then everyone deserves a land. We got to bring back Armenia. We got to bring back Kurdistan. We got to bring back all these places. We can't just be like, oh, this specific group of people gets to have this land. I don't get that. So
I'm gonna take notes so I can let you expand.
Yeah. If you gave you have two boys, right?
Yes.
Or I don't know if you say or not, whatever. Maybe sorry if you gave your younger son $100, $520s, right? And your older son came and he's like, hey, that's not fair. That doesn't make any sense. You can't just give him money and not give me money, right? This is the British promising the Palestinians land and promising, and the Jews were like, hey, we want some land. We went through some shit. Okay, so your son comes, you go, you know what? That's fair. You take 20 from your younger son, you give it to your older son. Your younger son's pretty pissed, but he still has $80, right? Then your older son's walking around. He goes, man, you know what? He's younger than me. $20 isn't much. I feel like I need a little bit more. And then you take another 20 from your son and you give your older son the 20. And he's like, all right, 40, 60. And then in the background, your older son takes another $40 from your younger son. Your younger son's left with 20. Now he has 80, right? Your younger son will not shut up about how he lost his $100. He just won't fucking do it. He keeps fighting the older brother, keeps trying to steal the money back, keeps trying to take the money back. At what point is it your younger son's fault for fighting for the money that was originally his?
So I understand your analogy, and I think it will be efficient for people who don't believe in historical ethno-religious claims to territory. Unfortunately for you, I'm a nationalist or like an internationalist. All right. So when it comes to the Polish people, as an example, they were screwed over historically. They were conquered by Russia and Germany simultaneously. But the Polish people have an ethno-religious location where they have been for hundreds, if not thousands of years, speaking approximately the same language, and approximately the same people lived there. People moved in and out, but it was still a relatively culturally continuous thing. Same thing with the English. Interesting thing with the English, though, is they've been conquered multiple times. So they have like the Welsh, the Scots, the Anglos, the Normans, the Irish. So they have like 5 different tribal groups that are all inside the United Kingdom. But the truth is that, or at least not the truth, but my historical perspective is that they all approximately lay claim to that territory of the world. Now, if they want to colonize, kind of like the Greeks did, where they moved out and they made city-states all over the world, that's one thing. But at least as far as I understand with the state of Israel, was that they colonized it as a religious group 3,200 years ago, 3,400 years ago, something like that. And so as a result, you can track back their history to the original conquest of Canaan, then the wars with the Philistines, then the Byzantine exile, or not Byzantine, then the Babylonian exile, then the conquest of Persia, then the conquest of the Greeks, then the conquest of the Romans, then the conquest of the Crusaders. And that entire time, there's like a large ethno-religious Jewish population in Jerusalem. And so what ends up finally happening in my opinion, is that Islam conquers. Well, Islam is tolerant of people of the book. It's tolerant of Christians and Jews. But in that tolerance, there's a hierarchy, which is effectively Islam is the best. And then Christianity and Judaism are treated as kind of like, I don't want to say second-class citizens, but like they got the right.
They pay a jizya tax.
They're wrong, but they got the right spirit. You know, they're Abrahamic, so we're going to tolerate them. And so that's what happened up through the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. Well, nowadays, in my opinion, the reason why the Al-Aqsa is holy to Muslims is because they conquered that territory and it was relevant because of the Old Testament. So for me, they both have, those ethno-religious groups both have relatively equal claim to those territory. Like, why do you not recognize the 3,400-year-old narrative of the Jews?
Because it was 3,400 years ago. And if we're going to go back to like 3,400 years ago, I'm waiting for Americans to give Native Americans their land back.
We're not, because they lost. So.
Oh, okay. So we're doing might makes right?
To some degree, yeah. It's like a combination of both. What's that?
How are you pro-Ukraine? How are you pro-Ukraine?
How am I pro Ukraine?
Right, and because I think
Ukraine
old claims to land.
Well, hold on.
Russia then has a right to want Ukraine as theirs, and especially with NATO being there, you should be pro-Russia, if anything.
Hold on. There's morality and there's practicality. Okay. So when it comes to morality, I don't believe in aggression. You know, like you should not be aggressive ever. Effectively.
Of course, yeah, sure.
But when it comes to descriptive historical claims, I always bring this thing up. There was a Greek city-state that got sacked, and they were neutral between Spartans and Athens, and the Athenians sacked this neutral city. And the neutral city was like, what's up? Why did you like kill all the men, enslave all the women, and enslave all the children? And, you know, what the fuck, right? We didn't do anything. And the Athenians say, the powerful do as they can, and the weak suffer what they must. And so you asked me about Russia, Ukraine. Well, from my perspective, the Ukrainians are correct in that they should fight for the territory, but the Russians are going to win because they have military control of Donetsk, Luhansk, and Crimea. And so, and they also have control of Zaporozhye as well. So what I would argue to the Ukrainians is you are better off giving up Donetsk, Luhansk, and Crimea, then negotiating for Zaporozhye, and then joining a Western military alliance that makes sure that you will not be invaded, and then develop economically so aggressively that you make Russia look like a third world shithole within a generation or two. That is my actual argument to Ukrainians. And so my argument to Palestinians would be, Israel, sorry, for the past 100 years has been kicking your fucking dick in. Every time you go to war, you have less and less territory and your people are in worse and worse conditions. So let's designate some borders. Let's freeze the borders with international guarantees that these borders will not be violated. And let's do internal development to the point that Gaza makes Israel look like a shithole within a generation or two. That's my argument to the Gazans as well, or to the Palestinians as well. I don't think they're going to take me up on it, though.
Yeah. This is my thing with Israel being where it is, right? Since its inception, it was supposed to be a safe homeland for Jewish people, and since its inception, it's been the least safe place for Jewish people to exist. Right?
That's incorrect, because you're sorry. I'm going to be an asshole. Europe wiped out a third of the global Jewish population.
I'm talking about right now. Yeah.
Yeah, but basically, if you include World War II, how many people have died in Israel since World War II?
You couldn't include world. I'm saying it's not a safe place for. Would you say that Israel is a safe place for Jews?
Probably not, but I would say it was safer than Europe 2 generations ago.
Yeah, it's safer than Europe when a Holocaust was happening. But I'm saying if its inception is to be the safest place for Jewish people, and it's not the safest place for Jewish people since its inception, like I'm talking since inception, not since previous, obviously.
Well, dude, I would love to. Well, hold on, because Zionism obviously started 200 years before that, right? It started in like the late 1800s.
Yeah, they had plans of going to Argentina. They had plans of going to. So I'm saying, if you were a group of people,
well, dude, if I could, I would tell every single Jew to settle in Montana. That's what I would do.
Too.
I know. Like if I could, but they don't have a religious claim to Montana. They have a religious claim to Israel.
Well, they weren't. The Zionist movement wasn't due to religious claim. It was just the most probable.
There's different branches, but you understand that, like, the secular Zionists wanted to create a safe homeland for Jews, and I understand that. But oftentimes, when it comes to ultra Orthodox Jews, or when it comes to even semi-religious Jews, they do appeal to like the prophecy of Abraham. It's Abraham, right? To the prophecy of Abraham for why they deserve to settle that region. And it's because God promised them the territory between the Euphrates and the Nile. Now, not everybody believes that literally, but that's still a 3,500-year-old promise.
Yeah, that's their claim. But then you are kind of saying, oh, so you are pro like colonizing or pro like it is kind of might makes right for you to an extent. Like these people came, they kicked the Palestinians' asses, and then they built the state. Well, I guess you get to keep the state. That is your argument, right?
Well, the other option. So here's the other thing, kind of also as like a third party, right? So I don't like jumping all over the place historically, but if Ireland was made up of Celts, which it is, and then I feel like I have a historical ethno-religious claim to the island of Ireland. Now, I'm not going to go over there and conquer it, but at the same time, like I would like to visit it because that is a part of my people's history, right? So same thing with Jews. I can understand their affinity for Israel and the homeland. And then when it comes to, well, what do you want to do? I don't want to give Israel unlimited license to ethnically cleanse Gaza and the West Bank, which, by the way, I think plenty of Americans do, which is scary as fuck. But at the same time, I do think at this point, the options are, when it comes to Hasan Piker, I don't think that his option happens without the destruction of the state of Israel and effectively like a new Holocaust. That's what it would take to defeat the state of Israel. So why can't we split this into and make it peaceful and economically prosperous?
Well, why can't we? It is really
why shouldn't we?
That I was giving you with. We could try, right? But we're kind of at the point where we're going back to like your kid's situation. Like, okay, so like you gave your kid $100 a year ago, and then the situation happens. He's left with 20. at what point is it like, does he have to just shut up and be like, well, here's $50 back, right? Now you guys both have 50. In his mind, he's like, well, I still fucking started with 100 and it was supposed to be mine. And then you just fucking gave him 50. So you have that issue for them. But then also,
yeah, but if your brother, if your father says, sorry, real quick, with that analogy, I want to do point by point real quick. With that analogy, your dad would be the international community, not the British mandate, because the Brits aren't even involved anymore. But if the international community says you get $50, you get $50, and if you don't like it, tough shit. Well, guess what? Even in that analogy, if the little brother bitches and he's like, oh, well, I had $100 at first and you fucked me over and you gave away 50 of my dollars. Guess what dad normally says in that situation? Tough shit.
Fuck off this. I got my money now, I guess. Yeah. You take the money back, right? You take the money back. So the British mandate, they claim the land. It's their fucking land. That is just UK and UK light in the Middle East. Fine. Okay. Right now you have Israel. Israel's on the map. Palestine was on the map before. Palestine's no longer on the map. It is all Israel. You have a section that is Gaza and a section that is the West Bank. We should do a 50-50 split for these people, divided at fucking Jerusalem, divided at the dome, right? The Jews can go to the wall, the Muslims can go to the mosque. Everyone should be happy. The issue with that is I don't know how you break up those lines. I don't know how you move all those people. I don't know how you convince Israel to give up 50%, right? And it's like, at this point, I would assume the Palestinians would concede to getting 50% back and having it be a 50-50 split. I would assume, right? I don't think these people are as bloodthirsty as we make them out to be. I think they are in a pretty shit situation where, yes, they voted for a terror group, but and they supported them. But at the same time, it's like, fuck it, bro. We're living in, we live shitty lives. Fucking let's go to war. I'm not saying it's not good, but these people do that. I just don't know how you convince Israel to give any land back. I don't know I don't know how you mobilize that. I think if you move the Palestinians out, right? Because everyone's talking about, oh, why don't all the other 50 countries take the Palestinians? There's multiple options with that, right? You're just breeding terror cells with new groups of people, right? You move all the Palestinians, Hamas, whatever it may be, goes to Jordan, goes to Egypt. Well, there are people who are anti-Israel in Jordan and in Egypt who are more than willing to join the fight, especially after an ethnic cleansing of a people.
Well, yeah, and the reason why I don't see that as realistic is because at least, sorry, I sat on my foot until it went to sleep, is because Jordan, Lebanon, and Egypt have all said, number one, that they're not willing to take all the Palestinians as refugees. And number two, they have had domestic issues with those guys coming in and effectively trying to back Islamist and jihadist organizations to overthrow their governments. As an example, the Muslim Brotherhood, which I think was popularly voted into power at some point in the past decade or two, before
everyone
the
claims to be a charity.
in.
Everyone claims to be a charity. Hezbollah was a charity before for the Shias, and then it turned. It's kind of a game that gets. It's a game that gets played. It's fucking.
But this is the danger, and this is where I can have an infinitely better conversation with you than I can with, let's say, Hasan or Frogan or any of those people. Not that they talk outside of their hug box, but just even if I did. Is because
that's the other part that I don't like about them. It's fucking such an echo chamber for everyone. Go ahead.
Yes. And I think they radicalize each other to the furthest left degree, and then nobody really challenges them on it. But the thing is that these dynamics that we're talking about, the things that everybody in my chat is concerned with in reference to Islamism being a Islamic theocratic supremacist ideology that's not necessarily violent, but still advocates for Islam as the main religion. Then kind of like Christian evangelicals, so to speak. Then when it comes to jihadism is like holy struggle and therefore terrorism, right?
So there's Muslim, which is just a follower, just a real quick Muslim who's a follower. Islamist is someone who believes that the law of the land should be religious, it should be Muslim. And then there's jihadis who believe they are in basically fighters of a holy war, right? They believe they're in a holy war, they're struggling, they're fighting, this is their jihad.
Right. And so what's funny though, is that as much as that feels like a foreign dynamic that's coming in and making the United States and the West more dangerous, these things are happening within Muslim countries all the time. And so as a result, you have, nominal Muslims, I guess, but they're also scared of, pissing off the Islamists, because if they piss off the Islamists too much, then maybe the jihadists come after them. And so it's this balance between secular power, how secular can you be? Can you drink alcohol? Can women show their faces? Can women, I saw a video in Egypt, in I think it was in Cairo, of women walking around without hijab and without niqab. And like for me, I would be, dude, if I was a chick in the Middle East and North Africa, I'd be at least a hijabi, because I'm not trying to get like my shit kicked in because I'm not wearing the
It's not like that. It's
not
funny
like
that people
that?
think it's like it's
Yo,
not like
that's
that.
scary
In
as
certain
fuck.
areas, if you go to Iran, it is 100% like you're mandated by state like to wear a scarf as like a girl. It's at least very, very, very suggested, right? But if you're like in Lebanon, right, like the theys and the gays, the women, it's Lebanon's basically like little Europe in the Middle East.
Yeah, but see, that would still scare the fuck out of me, because basically there's still jihadist terrorism in Lebanon. There's still jihadist terrorism in Turkey. There's still jihadist terrorism in Egypt. And you just might throw up your hands and just be like, yeah, well, fuck it. You got to live your life at some point. That could be your attitude. But at the same time, like I would be, dude, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, in ISIS, this was in like 2011, 2012. ISIS kidnapped like a random group of like Coptic Christians and like beheaded them on the beach. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So for me, it's like, you could say that's random, but that's fucking terrifying. I could drive from here to Washington, D.C., and I have 0%. I might get into a car accident and die, and I might get shot randomly by like criminal gangs, but I'm not going to get kidnapped and murdered for being in the wrong religion or wearing the wrong clothes. That's not a thing.
Yeah, so it's
well, mostly because I'm not Muslim.
Yeah. The issue with the Islamism and the issue with the whole thing is that, like, if you actually read the religion, there is no conscription, right? You actually can't. Like, it's actually against the religion to tell someone to wear a scarf. All these theocracies, like, you're not supposed to have a theocracy. The law is meant to be like religious law in the same way that we derived our laws from Christian laws, right? Like, we get them from Christian ethics. That's how we get laws. Technically, it should be that from Muslim ethics, you get your laws, right? That's how it should be. The issue is you have people, right? Cultural people. Arabs are an aggressive people, right? We are. Like the men are masculine. We have the machismo type situation. So you have leaders who are enacting their version of what they think like Muslims should be. And so like that's why when I say like when you're in Lebanon, there isn't really that like jihadi threat. People like you go to Beirut, there's bars everywhere, there's clubs everywhere. We have Haifa Wahbi, we have Nancy Ajram. These are basically our Cardi B's and our like, you know, scantily dressed singers and so on and so forth. You have like, gay people in Lebanon.
Maybe I'm paranoid, but I swear to God, I'd be wearing like the Saudi man dress. I'd be growing out the beard. I'd be wearing the white lace hat and all that shit. And I'd be like, Assalamu alaikum, brother. Like, I mean,
it's a vibe. It's a vibe when you're in Saudi to wear the thobe and it's a vibe, brother. Trust me. But I think
you're saying it's infinitely more diverse culturally than I'm giving it credit for, which I understand. But
you ever been to Miami?
Yeah, of course.
There's a lot of fucking fucked up shit in Miami, right? Like there's a lot of degeneracy. There's a lot, but that's not like indicative of like what Miami is. So like you may be worried that you're like you probably wouldn't take your kid to Miami, right? Because you don't want them to see ass shaking and so on and so forth. It's kind of like the same thing when you go to the Middle East. It's like yes, there are areas where it's going to be worse than others. There are countries that I don't really recommend anyone go visit. Pakistan, right? It's not really the tourist destination of the world. But like Lebanon, you go to Egypt, you go to Turkey. These are places that you can be free, and then especially if you're an American, they're not going to they're not trying to fuck with they're not trying to kill you particularly.
Okay, well dude, I mean that's based, but the kind of getting back to I guess the overview of like apologia, I guess, is the reason why. And by the way, like I see, you know, some people in chat who are like, oh yeah, Ali's cool, whatever. But I also see some people in chat who are like, oh, this motherfucker's lying out of his ass, you know, he's just trying to make you all comfortable and shit.
I'm doing tequila.
Dude. Yeah. Like, dude, I used in 2016, I used to see that shit or say that shit. For those of you who don't know, there's a, so tequila, if I remember correct, is like a Shia thing where it's just kind of some kind of like religious doctrinal thing where it says that if you're in a Sunni majority territory and you believe that your life is at risk, then you can lie about aspects of your faith so you don't get killed. But what that got translated. But what got translated into the West is Muslims just lie about how violent and bloodthirsty and conquest oriented they are in order to be normies to you so they can sneak up and stab you in the back. That's the Western translation. So anyways, so the thing is though, I guess what's surprising or scary to me is I hope Gassim doesn't mind me calling him out, but I have a Sudanese friend, and he's not secular. I think he's Muslim, but he would fall in the category of Muslim. He's not an Islamist, and he advocates for Sudan, not for the government because the government has issues, and not for the revolutionaries because the revolutionaries have issues, but he advocates for the people, and so does his family. But what happens is we go to dinner with some of his friends, and his friend didn't say anything too crazy. Like, I'm not trying to exaggerate it, but effectively there was more sympathy for Islamists and jihadists than I would be comfortable with. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, if I went to dinner and then I was like, oh, you know, I don't like those Christian evangelicals, but realistically, I think those Jews and Muslims would be better off if they converted. And that's not what his friend said. But I'm just saying, like, if I said that shit, I'm sure that would make you be like, that Connor guy's a little fucking weird. And then same thing. If I was saying, like, you know, I don't really like, you know, that the American military is invading the Middle East and North Africa, but, you know, gosh darn it, they're just taking care of business and taking out the trash. If I said that shit, then I'm sure that that would also make you feel a certain kind of way. And so I feel that way towards Muslims when they're being apologist about Islamists and jihadists.
I think there's,
especially Hasan,
for like Arabs and Muslims, like for me, I'm just going to speak for myself. I look at the Middle East and I go, damn, bro, these people just fucking fight, right? They fight. And if I was like someone who was like more religiously Muslim, if I wasn't a bad Muslim, as I'm pretty liberal in my Islam, I would maybe be like, at least the Islamists are fighting for the moral right, which is like in the same way that if Andrew Wilson has supporters, right? Like maybe like women should have the right to vote, but damn, I mean, I get his fucking point, right? Like we do kind of provide everything for women. They don't get their rights outside of us, right? It's kind of one of those things where it's like if you are like a Christian and you're devout and you see someone like Andrew Wilson, you're kind of like, or if you're a degenerate, right? And you see someone like Andrew Tate and you're like, fuck, I mean, maybe I don't like the grooming stuff, but the rest of the shit he says is kind of fucking, you know, I think it's a little bit.
Dude, number one, I wish I had a Bugatti. Yeah. Number two, with Andrew Tate, he was doing this speech before he had like something where everybody paid $500 in order to have dinner with him or something like that. And he invited all the guys back and he said, hey, you're going to step into a ring with a trained fighter. And if you don't, you're a pussy. And if you do, then, you know, we'll give you some kind of award at the end of it. And he was talking about how, as a man, as somebody who's developing, you need to be willing to take a hit. You need to be willing to go into dangerous situations with minimal training experience. You need to be confident. And you also need to be willing to grow from pain. And some of the dudes that he was having on that thing, they had like a panic attack. They couldn't deal with it. And so they pussed out. And some other guys stepped up and they didn't get like killed. They didn't get like knocked out or choked out. But they fought and they got hit and they got bloody. And so for me, I'm like, dude, that's exactly what I want to tell my sons. That's exactly what I want to teach other men. Maybe a little bit less sex trafficking. And I would like Andrew Tate. But, you know, that shit's fucking evil, right? So, but that's the thing is I see other people sweep for the sex trafficking, which is my beef, which is why I get pissed off at Hasan and Frogan, because they don't seem to just say, hey, American geopolitics is fucked up. They say American geopolitics is fucked up. Therefore, these militant organizations are actually correct in what they're doing. And to me, that's too far.
Yeah, so I agree. I think we've had this conversation where I do think I think a voice like yours or a voice like mine would probably be, for yours to the right, mine to the left, would probably be a little bit better to hear because I do think we're honest. I don't think we necessarily are propagandizing anything. I think we're two sides of one coin. Our ideologies may be different, but I do think we have the same.
I'm propagandizing being normal. That's what I'm propagandizing. I'm propagandizing being like a good dude who cares about your community and actually wants to see the world a better place. That's what I'm propagandizing.
Yeah. So for me, recently, I've been why do I defend Islam? Why do people defend Islamists, right? I don't think it's a defense of Islamists. I think like when I'm online and I see Muslims get categorized into like this one thing, Muslims are terrorists, right? Which equals Arabs are terrorists, right? I'm over here like, first of all, I'm not even religious, but I'm out here defending the people, the group, myself. This is my in-group. And so what I think happens is like when someone says something like, fuck it, dude, America deserved 9/11, right? With the Hasan thing. I watched it with the context. I don't think it should have been said. I don't think it's good. but he was replying to the guy saying like we're still going to send munitions to Saudi or something, and like I think the idea is like, hey, if you're going to consistently fund these fucking people right after they attacked you, it's like, what the fuck are we doing here, right? And I don't think it's good to say like American soldiers deserve your PTSD, right? I don't think it's, but when you are Arab or you're Muslim and you're consistently being held to like purity tested on whether you're a terrorist or not, do you condemn Hamas? Right, directly after like what we were seeing like over the past year, was do you condemn Hamas? It's like, I'm sure, but like, what does that do? Like, I'm an American. I see my money going to Israel. Israel's doing this thing. Hamas is this terrorist group. Hamas doesn't represent me. I don't have a connect line. I don't talk to this person. It's in the same way when people are like, oh, if you're fighting for Palestine, how come you're not fighting for Sudan? Well, I don't think we're funding the Islamists in Sudan, right? So it's like, it feels weird to talk to these people who aren't going to listen to.
No,
I
get
defensive of your group, which real quick, you get defensive of your group, and when you see things get categorized as like Islamist terrorist attacks this person, and you're just like, fucking god damn it. Like when a shooting happens, right? I'm like, please don't be Arab. Please don't be Arab. Please don't be Arab. Right?
Yeah, every time it's a white guy, the Muslims and the black folk are like, oh, thank God.
We cheer.
Yeah.
And it's because we're like I feel like I'm constantly put in this place of defense where I'm like,
so white folk do apologia for empire, for colonization, for all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Shit, even me. I fucking do it. But I can back that stuff up. And then what I would say is I do have to roll in a minute just because I do have that meeting in 10 minutes. But
no worries.
What I would say is, and we can obviously continue this conversation. You and I always have great time.
I think this should be a good segment, man.
Yeah, it will be. But the thing that I wanted to say though is that it's because it's not presumed, and the reason why it's not presumed is because of people like Hasan. This is where I think Hasan makes the shit worse, because when you say America deserved 9/11, or just within the past week, he said that, well, if you're a person who agrees with voting lesser of two evils, and you are berating leftists because they didn't vote for Kamala, well, between the lesser of two evils, you should be voting for Hamas. And it's like, dude, I understand what you're saying, where you're evaluating evil, the players on the field, and therefore you're making this moral calculation. But what you're saying effectively is that murder is okay. But the sane, normie, liberal approach is that, like, we understand if there's militant armed groups in Palestine in the West Bank who are fighting IDF and fighting for the Palestinians, but that doesn't mean that you can shoot a kid in the fucking face. Like that's never acceptable. There will never be a time that Americans or liberals will look at a jihadi lining up women at the side of a music festival and gunning them down and be like, oh, I understand that. You know, we might understand it historically, but we're not going to morally justify it. And that's what it feels like Frogan and Hasan do, is by understanding the geopolitical, they make excuses for the practical.
Yeah, I think that they're trying to win over an audience, right? Obviously, you have large groups of people who at least tangentially support what happened, right? Like they're like, hey, there's a group of people who are oppressed. What do you expect out of an oppressed people other than a reaction? So on and so forth. I'm of the camp of, I understand the situation. I understand what happened, and I'm still able to just be like, yo, we shouldn't be doing that. It doesn't make it like all these people supporting the murder of over the past 24 hours. Like, fuck you. All you're doing is ruining any potentiality for a discussion towards Palestinians. All that happens is that we end up getting labeled as like terrorists or sympathy supports terrorism, when we are sympathetic to a cause of a people. And so,
and that differentiation is required. That like I don't have any beef.
Yeah.
There are people who will accuse you of being a jihadist sympathizer because you support Palestinians, and that's fucked up. But I totally disavow that shit. And I think that the conversation is better served by, you know, saying like, Israel's doing fucked up shit that's killing Palestinian civilians, and the Palestinian civilians do not deserve what's happening to them just because Hamas exists, or even because Palestinians support Hamas out of desperation. And so for just to analogize it, and then I kind of got a dip, but effectively it's like, I served as a part of the military industrial complex, right? I just did. And so let's say the military industrial complex kills extended members of your family in Lebanon, right? Well, if you come to my house and you're like, Connor, my uncle got smoked the other day, and then you shoot my kid in the face, That's not justice, right?
Yeah.
That's like vengeance and murder. Now, maybe I don't deserve to be shot in the face either. However, you shoot me in the face, that makes more sense because I was the active participant in the system that led to your uncle's death. So that's where these people blurring the lines between civilians and active participants and civilians and military, I think is gross, because what happens is it gives people the logical justification to commit acts of terrorism. But then guess what the response to terrorism is? It's more intervention. It's more militarism. It's more American hegemony. It's more military incursions. And so we get the worst of all worlds.
Well, yeah. To be fair, the whole civilian thing is it's fucking tough when you have conscripted people in your country. Israel needs to really eliminate that fucking conscription.
I agree, because they're so scared of casualties that they don't even send their own soldiers in order to do clearing operations. They send in the tanks, and then when they take like AK-47 fire, they just level the entire fucking building because they're afraid of taking infantry casualties. 100%. That was one of the things that I objected to most. Is they were sending armor in unsupported, letting the armor take fire, and then blowing up the whole fucking building. That's crazy.
Yeah, the whole situation. But yeah, you got to get going. I'm sure we'll have this talk soon. Thank you for having this conversation.
Yeah, of course.
With me.
Let's run it back when we got a little bit more time. But yeah, if there's a geopolitical situation that pops off and you're live streaming and you're available, I'm happy to jump on.
Absolutely. For the chat, you can find me at Sociologic with 2 L's. I'm on Twitter. If you want to see the light support of
the mild support of Muslims.
Come to me. We got you. But always, thank you for having me. Free Palestine. Can you put your left wrist up real quick? Terror supporter.
You son of a bitch. All right.
ADL, get him. ADL, get
him. Bye, buddy. Have a good one.
Have a good one, man.
All right. And then chat, I'm sorry that I got to run, but I do have a meeting at 5 and I need to use the restroom. Okay. But listen, Ali's a good dude. We don't always agree on everything, but he's fundamentally like, he's a chill Muslim. So I want you guys to know a chill Muslim. Ali's cool. Gassim is obviously dope. I don't know if you ever saw him, but him and I did like a Lauren Southern struggle session. We've also talked a couple of times on stream. I love Gassim. He's a member of the Discord as well. So obviously, I'm a mild Zionist, meaning I support the state of Israel, but we should probably blow up a minimal amount of kids as possible. Whether we're talking about Israeli civilians getting slaughtered by Hamas, that's fucking evil, and it effectively justifies what the IDF is doing in Gaza and the West Bank. And then with Gaza and the West Bank, then I think, number one, the Palestinians should have a territory to call home. And then number two, we should blow up a minimum amount of children possible, right? So, all right, I'm going to the meeting. Sacred Snow, thank you for remembering my nickname, Shelly. I parasocially love you guys. I hope you have a great day. Bye for now.